Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is becoming a habit now. This is now part 3, I guess you could say, of the Ethereum staking conversation. So I made an initial video about staking as a whole. And I mentioned that staking is more than one thing. I need to be nuanced on your discussion. Someone asked a question about Ethereum specifically, and I made a specific video about Ethereum staking and my conclusions on that. So please refer to that video there. And alhamdulillah, there's a brother on Twitter who had some observations, you could say. Obviously, he disagreed with my conclusion. And I wanted to just go through some of the things he said. Maybe he's correct. Who knows? Let's have a look. So we have an account here from a person called Submitter IA. Says Sheikh Muawiyah just did a detailed analysis of Ethereum staking, but the central premise of the video is wrong. Here's why. So, Jazakallah khair for brother for your contribution, for sharing my video with your audience. Obviously, what's important to understand here is that this is just, my video was just about my view. And just like I see many ulama who say that Bitcoin is haram and I disagree, I'm sure there'll be some who see my videos and disagree. And it's also possible that just like the ulama, I believe, the ulama who say that Bitcoin is haram, I may also be incorrect in my assessment of Ethereum. I may be wrong. Maybe one day I might change my view. Who knows? Maybe from this thread, my views will change. We'll see. But Jazakallah khair for sharing my views. And like I said, for dealing with this with good manners and adab. It's always good to have a nice little dialogue and conversation, little scrap on Twitter, you know what I mean? Anyway, so let's have a look. What's his premise? Staking is a loan with benefits, i.e. the APY to the lender. Now, I don't think I ever said that specific term in the sense that a loan with benefit. Maybe I did. I mean, that was essentially what I was saying anyway. All loans with benefit are haram, as Sheikh Muawiyah pointed out. Yeah, so I think the principle that was mentioned was كل قرض جرت به المنفعة فهو حرام. Every loan that brings about a benefit is haram. Now, as I mentioned in the video, I do believe that with the advent of the digital world, maybe this concept needs to be understood in the modern sense, in a digital realm. Maybe, I could be wrong. And I'll show you my thoughts as we progress. But what counts as loan? Not every giving and receiving of wealth is a loan. Correct. Agreed. There was a part of the video which I cut out, which I was going to discuss what al-rahan was, what al-dhaman is. Because the video was so long, I actually just removed that part. But maybe I should have kept it in. So I'll mention it here. You can give your money as what's called a rahan. So if I borrowed money from you and I wanted to guarantee that, or to give you confidence that I'm going to pay you back, I will give you something that you can sell. Let's say, for example, a watch or a car. If I don't pay you back the money by this date, then you have permission to sell the rahan to claim back the wealth. So that's an example of giving the money and even losing it as well. And I did analyze previously when I did record the thing yesterday. When I did previously record the video, could this be a rahan? My conclusion was no, because rahan usually a different jins, different type than money. You don't give money to borrow money. You give something else that can be sold for money, not money itself. And there were some details in there. Then there's also dhaman, guarantees, and so on and so forth. So there were some things I did discuss, but again, for brevity, I removed it. A loan, qard, in Islam has a few key elements. Okay, let's have a look. One of these elements is that the borrower is fully liable for the return of the loan. Yes, that is true, kind of. For example, a bank must return your deposit. Yes, but a bank can also penalize you for things. Maybe a bounce check, maybe something you did. They can penalize you, although what you have with them is a loan. So I would object here in that regards. Not every loan, the person can't penalize you. It's possible that you might have a loan to someone and you don't get back all of it for whatever reason. Or else it's defaults. Yeah. Or else if the bank doesn't give you back all your money, it is a default. Yes, that is true. But like I said, in practice, that isn't always the case, as you know. The Ethereum blockchain is definitely not fully liable for the return of capital, the capital you stake. So the DeFi chain is not fully liable to give you back the money. Okay, let's see what he's saying. That's the point of staking. Your capital can be lost for poor performance or malicious activity. And I would say, much like a bank can penalize you for many things that they do, that they penalize you for, all the fees and stuff you get charged for. But actually, fees. Let's be honest with that one. A fee is a service, so they can charge you for that service, and they take the money you already have. That's fine. But like I said, if you were to have a particular transaction with a bank and some misbehavior happened, for example, you lost a particular thing, you made a check that was more than what you could cover, or whatever the case may be, then you can be penalized for that. Yeah, that's one example. Ethereum, okay. But also on that issue about the Ethereum blockchain not being fully reliable, I did mention that the slashing is also problematic. That what right does the Ethereum network have to take away your money or essentially penalize you? But so be it. That's one of the nuanced differences you mentioned between the two. It's up to you, I guess, to decide if you think that's a meaningful difference from the very premise of what I mentioned. So the rest of the argument falls apart. Yes, I would say that the rest of the argument could possibly fall apart as it relates to the interest, if it isn't considered to be a qard. So if you generally don't believe that it's actually a loan, and I specified why I think it's a loan, because you've given money to the system, you no longer have the system, and they now owe you the money back. So I've defined why I believe it's a loan, but refer to the video for that details. The rest of the argument, okay, so if staking is not a loan, then comparing APY to interest is a false equivalence. Yeah, kind of, but in many cases in Islamic finance, many people have mentioned that when looking at different models like different Islamic mortgages models, they've also highlighted that the use of terms like APY and so on and so forth and guaranteeing income is actually a sign that it is a loan. So there isn't just one sign of a loan. There could be other signs that something is a loan or something is of interest. And one of those signs are guaranteed income. Now, despite the fiqh, we could still determine staking is a net negative for Muslims because it doesn't align with the maqasid of Sharia. Okay, so I guess the conclusion, although you might disagree with the details, maybe you could say the conclusion is the same. I don't know, but I did highlight that there was still issues with the slashing, the taking of your wealth for whatever reason. And also we highlighted that the end result of the system is the same as interest, where the rich get richer for having money and the poor get poorer for not having the money, or not staking in this case. But that would have to be much more comprehensive review, looking at the 5 of the 6 maqasid of Islam, and then many will say, yeah, so the 5, what's called maqasid of Islam, like the 5 things that Islam comes to preserve: the religion, the intellect, the human self itself, the person's wealth, and the honor of the individual. And the wealth, preservation of wealth, would be one of those things. Like I said, the slashing is the destruction of wealth. Also, the whole burning of fees, mentioned that in as well, that part of the Ethereum network is that when you make a transaction, part of your fees is destroyed. That's destruction of wealth. That goes against the maqasid of Islam to preserve wealth. So we have literally a whole system which does exactly what Islam come to stop: the destruction of wealth. Besides, proof of stake is much more akin to proof of work than it is to a bank. Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of parallels as it relates to proof of stake, proof of work, which is why I mentioned Bitcoin mining first, to see where there were parallels, but also where they were different. Instead of expending computer effort on guessing random numbers, just skip the guessing and provide the actual work, verifying transactions, adding a block to the blockchain. Actually, you've missed out a very key part of proof of work. And the work isn't just validating transactions. It's also providing the validity attached to that block, so that anyone can prove what is a valid block on planet Earth independently from anyone else. So I know there's a bit of overlooking or dismissing of the work that the Bitcoin blockchain does. But I do think that the blockchain, the work on the Bitcoin blockchain is very important. That number that is provided, it's not just a random number, not just to fulfill some nonsense. It's actually a very, very important number, which I would say gives essentially value to the block that's provided. But I guess that's another video altogether. Refer to my mining video. So Sheikh Muawiyah does share several thoughtful points, and I don't think ETH or Solana staking are perfect or ideal system. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair. But programming or programmable blockchains are undeniably the bleeding edge of financial technology. Of course it is. My goal is to push Muslims to be at the defining edge rather than having the future of finance determined for them. And again, I agree. Refer to my video I made about, it's titled Build Systems Before Systems Are Built For You. So yeah, I agree. We should be at the forefront, but that doesn't mean compromising your morals and ideals and ethics on subpar systems, which is, I would say, Ethereum. But Jazakallah khair, brother submitter, for your video. And I do appreciate constructive, well-structured, and with manners, feedback. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, wait. Wait. There's something else. So, how could I be wrong? Let's analyze and scrutinize my own thoughts. I think if you look at the system of Ethereum, one difference which I highlighted before was the fact that someone else mentioned that there's no one you're lending to. So one could argue that this is a victimless crime almost. I.e., in riba, the one who you're giving the loan to is effectively the victim. And he is now at the mercy of the one who's giving the loan. And essentially, this is an ongoing harm to the one who received the loan. And with the Ethereum network, there is no victim. There is no person who has to pay back money who can't find the money. Actually, the system is inventing the money and bringing the money into existence. So it's not the case whereby there'll be a case. It's not the case whereby a person is unable to pay the money and then become a debt slave to this person. And it's not that. That is true. That is one element which Ethereum network has effectively eliminated from the scenario. So if we was to factor that as the primary and the only source of it being wrong, then fair enough. I would give it that Ethereum doesn't have that as the crime. And I would push back on that a bit as well in saying that actually there is a victim to the crime, and that's everyone who does not stake, which is what I highlighted in the previous video. If you don't stake, your value is being inflated away, which is why they try to involve the burning of fees to try and make it deflationary, as they said, ultra hard money, because they recognize that the inherent system makes those who stake ETH get richer and those who spend and use ETH get poorer over time, especially as it relates to inflation. Now, as far as I'm aware, there was a moment when Ethereum was deflationary, but since I think April this year, it's now becoming inflationary again, where it's now going up in value. So it does depend on how much network is being used. If it's used a lot, that means more of the ETH will be burnt than that which is made, and therefore it'll be deflationary, and vice versa. If you just look at the price of Ethereum compared to Bitcoin, then it's not doing great at all. But putting that aside, there is a kind of harm, lesser harm than actual riba, but there is a kind of harm as relates to everyone in the system, whereby those who get richer as a whole, and those who don't stake get poorer as a whole. And likewise, one could also argue that the same thing exists with banks. When you loan your money to a bank, the bank is not really this poor person who can't pay back the loan. Banks also invent cash, especially central banks, they invent cash. So I would say that argument, if we consider banking deposits as also riba, then that also kind of applies to them, because they also create money and they also don't have the same kind of harms that you'd have with lending to individuals. So yeah, I mean, I guess there are some nuances. I would definitely admit that it's not a clear cut as interest. to someone else that we all know and hate. But I still leaned more towards, because of the overall theme of Ethereum and how money is produced and what it does, the end result. I still lean towards the fact that Ethereum is more akin to replicating the existing system than making something different. And this, inshallah, is the end of the video. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.